Welcome and thank you for joining us today for End-User Experience Monitoring, the key to proactive IT management. My name is Arun and I will be your moderator for today's event. Our featured speakers today are JP Garbani, Vice President and Principal Analyst serving Infrastructure and Operations Professionals at Forrester Research, and Gaurav Jetli, Director of Cloud at Kronos Incorporated. JP has several decades of experience as an IT technology designer and marketer, and also as a client of IT technology. He has broad experience in designing advanced technology solutions in industrial and commercial applications and bringing them to the market. He has written extensively on technology for several business publications. JP is often a featured speaker at vendor-sponsored events and webinars. Gaurav has a total of 17 years of experience in managing cloud operations, designing and handling large cloud-hosted solutions. Well, JP and Gaurav will be answering your questions during the Q&A session following today's presentations. We do encourage you to log in your questions at any time using the Q&A functionality located in the right-hand corner of your screen. Also, today's event is being recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand playback as well as a PDF of the speaker slides. You should receive an email from ManageEngine in a couple of days, so be on the lookout for that. And now, I would like to go ahead and turn things over to our first featured speaker, JP Garbani. JP?
Things that we're looking for in application performance management, and then what is the roadmap? I think that in all my experience with APM, very often there are pieces coming from different horizons that we want to put together, and there is a progression, a roadmap to get there, and then the benefits and the conclusion to this presentation and to the end-user performance monitoring and management. So on the next slide, we see that executives want to differentiate on customer experience. Why is that? Well, as you know, we live in an age of instant gratification. I was talking last night to one of our younger analysts, and she was telling me that she couldn't live without her iPhone. It's all her life in there, all her contacts or addresses or all the things that she cares about is in there. But of course, this is valid only if she can have instant response, and she certainly wouldn't look twice at moving on to another app or moving on to another provider or moving on to another website if the performance and the response time and the customer experience wasn't there. So what we see here on this slide is that there is a very important element. 76% of enterprises want to differentiate on customer experience, show that customer experience is for them the most important element, the number one line item before the rest of the application. Because if the customer experience is not good, then we're not going to continue the interaction with the company. So slide 8, next slide. We see that, if you talk to the customer effectively, the loyalty is to a website, for example, to an e-commerce site, is definitely linked to customer experience. Okay. Bad experience, people are going to switch to another competitor. Good experience, they are going to effectively consider that website for another purchase and continue interacting with that website and recommend this to another colleague. So there is a very important element, very critical element in providing the best possible customer experience. And customer experience, of course, doesn't mean only performance, but it is, performance is definitely, as I said, a foundation for it. So the next slide, slide 9, let's look at the foundation of customer satisfaction. The perceived performance is a necessary foundation because, of course, if you are trying to interact with an application, with, trying to perform a transaction, and the application is not available or the application is too slow, the rest, I would say the ergonomy of the page, the solidity of the application, the value of the application that you're trying to use is going to be, secondary, because the fact that you cannot get there, and we have seen that, unfortunately with some government example recently. If you cannot get there, it doesn't matter what the intent was. It doesn't matter what the value, the end value was. You cannot judge all these things because you cannot effectively use it. So usability starts with performance. And when we talk to enterprises and we talk to clients, availability is certainly the first element that comes to mind. Of course, if you get a 404 or you get an error message, the server doesn't respond, etc., definitely that's puts you down in terms of how I would say fruitful that experience might be. Okay, and it's relatively difficult to a certain availability. Many companies will use availability from the different components that they have in their data center, which of course doesn't prove that the application is working. In the past and today, we have realized that the only good solution to look at availability is actually to have the capability to ping the end user application, is to simulate the end user to be what we call in our jargon an active agent that we can use to effectively run pseudo transaction to interact with the system and make sure it's available. All of the solutions that measure end user response time are not going to cut it, because if there is no traffic, there is effectively no way to understand whether the application is running or not. So once we have created this capability of measuring availability from the end user experience, our second step would be to measure the response time. Actually, what is the performance as seen from the end user perspective, and how important or how good or how bad is it. So on the next slide, slide 10, we see that productivity and application performance is a key element, because all studies that we have made about human-machine interaction shows that when you are working or when you are using an application, an online application, you are in fact, in sync with the machine. That is, your brain and the questions and the answers from the applications are more or less synchronized. If you lose too much time, responding to the query of the user, you're breaking that synchronization. And beyond a certain limit, the attention of the end user starts to wander. So if it is someone working in an office, they're going to give up and go get a cup of coffee. If it is a client or potential buyer on an e-commerce site, well, they will start looking for something else. They will open another window, another tab on their browser and start, going to Google and try to find an alternative to what they were doing. So this is, the result that are, kind of cast in concrete. The key to productivity is in response time, okay? 0.1 second, instantaneous, 1 second, that's when you start perceiving that there is a response time. 10 seconds, and the attention of the end user goes away. So most of the time, we're going to, make sure that we are in the 2 to 3 second bracket, because that's, the allowance for system or complexity of pages or complexity of application, plus, the time, perceiving the answer, reading the answer. So it's still within the limits where the synchronization is not lost. Next slide, slide 11. When we talk to people doing, managing performance, managing IT in data centers or in the cloud, or the challenges that they find is that it's difficult to guarantee the performance. 87% of our respondents are saying, the most difficult task that we have is to guarantee that response time within the limits that we have set in the previous slide. It's difficult to, make sure that we are staying within these limits. And the reason for that is really what we can see on slide 12. So slide 12 shows, the typical applications that we are using today and the typical application management problem, because we have a bunch of things that are interconnected by the network, that are talking to each other, that are participating into the performance. So is one of these things goes down or is not performing as expected for, any condition, whether it's a hardware fault or a software fault or, an application fault, the whole thing starts unraveling. It's very difficult, it becomes very difficult in a complex environment like this to effectively point out, first, whether there is a problem, and second, where the problem might be. And this is not helped in slide 13 by the complexity. So slide 13, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So here we are trying to express the problem. Okay. Problem is that we have a certain manual ability to manage things. We have, if we look at this complex infrastructure that we're talking about, these many moving parts, we have an ability, our brain has an ability to control and manage and understand some of it. Unfortunately, the complexity that we're putting into our application is not a linear understanding or linear progression. It's actually an exponential progression. So we are learning, we are bringing more people, but we are not progressing at the rate the application complexity is progressing. When we are introducing things like cloud and virtualization and mobility and other technologies, we're actually accelerating the complexity. of our application, and therefore it becomes more and more difficult to understand. Because of that, we need some way to actually grasp the role of this infrastructure, the role of this application, the role of this complexity that we have created. And the only way to effectively have a clear picture of what's going on is response time. The performance viewed by the end user is actually what shows a complete picture of everything that is behind. The problem now becomes to reconcile that view, and that's the problem of application performance management. How do I reconcile the view of the end user with the view of the IT professional, the persons who are looking at, servers, network segments, network components, storage components, databases, etc. So on the next slide, we are at Forrester, we have developed this APM, what we call this APM reference model, which shows, all the things that should be monitored in an APM solution. So end user experience monitoring is the first one. Okay, it gives the capability to understand globally what's going on, and then there are different components like understanding the topology. What are the components of an application? Okay, what are the elements I should focus on in order to understand where the problem might be? The next thing is monitoring the application. So monitoring the code, understanding, whether you're using Java, PHP, or another type of application language, or if you're using a packaged application, etc. Then you've got to monitor the code. You've not got to understand whether that code is performing correctly. The database monitoring is important. The infrastructure monitoring is important. Okay, all of these things needs to be understood. But the typical end user monitoring, the end user experience monitoring, is what is going to give a first level of understanding of whether things are going well or not. If we have good performance, it means that everything is performing as planned. If it's not, then we have a problem. If we have a problem, then we have got to analyze it, and that's where all these things are coming together. And eventually we're putting all that on a real-time dashboard just to, give all IT professionals or IT operations the possibility to find out what is the root cause. So the next slide is actually, the way to approach the problem. So we start with, typical things that in IT operation were built over time. So there is probably in your data center some level of system management monitoring and things like that. That's the first thing we do. And then we probably have introduced some Java monitoring, or so application network monitoring, to understand what's going on. So system management, performance on the network, database monitoring, and then we move to the most used applications today, browser-based application, and then we're moving into understanding the code itself because it's new, but also understanding what is the end user experience monitoring, and then we start building up to create an APM solution. So we go through these different stages of better and better understanding of what is going on in order to achieve the goal of end-to-end monitoring and customer satisfaction. On the next slide, we have a summary of the best practices. Okay, how do we get there? How do we go from foundation to maturity? So start monitoring application availability. Okay, improving alerting, because now we have a way to understand when the application is not there. So we're trying to reduce downtime. We improve performance management and root cause analysis because we are measuring response time, we are alerted, we understand what are the components, we can pinpoint where the application goes wrong. We serve especially control changes and the release of changes because it's one of the major components of problems, okay? So we improve performance predictability. It's important to go back, when the code is not performing the way it should, important to go back to the developer to tell them, hey, here is the problem and you should certainly do something about it. Manage the service levels, and that's really, again, back to performance and availability. These are the two criteria on which you're going to build your service level, and benchmark that against your competition to make sure that you effectively differentiate, as we said at the beginning, and finally, completely understand the end user experience. That is not only built on, performance, which is the foundation, but understand usability, understand error rates, understand a number of things that are, making the end user experience more and more important. Next slide. So, the foundation for IT operation is, even though IT operations are not number one in business impact driver, it's a necessary foundation, okay? It's, again, and I reiterate this argument, even though you've created a great product, if it doesn't perform well, it's not appreciated, okay? Availability, first step, concentrate on that. Second step, use an active agent to provide your service level management. Why is this? Well, you've got to have some consistent statistical sample that will tell you whether you're performing well all the time. And the best solution is to effectively monitor the same transaction, for example, for a long period of time. So you will see variations, but on the whole, you will be able to establish a statistical control of that that response time and that performance and that availability. And you can apply to it a number of methodologies like Six Sigma or whatever, but you will be able to measure whether you're constantly good or constantly bad, or relatively erratic in terms of performance. Constantly bad or constantly good is good, because if you're constantly bad, there is certainly one root cause about it, and you can move to constantly good. If you're all over the place, that's not good at all, because it means that you are dependent on a number of factors that are not fully understood. So that's really a foundation for IT operation. Next slide. So, next slide, please. If we now go to, different surveys, different enterprises, we see that a good majority of enterprises want to monitor end user experience for availability and performance. That's really, a key foundation for service level management. Now, we also see that the business is creating a lot of pressure to improve that experience. We find also that, contrary to a few years ago, a majority of IT operations understand now that end user experience is effectively a measure of the global performance of the application. And it has definitely, and many people perceive that, a direct impact on the company business results. Of course, if you are British Petroleum, maybe you're not selling to end users, okay? But it has a direct impact on your partnerships. It has a direct impact on your employees, and therefore it has a direct impact on, your capabilities to run the business. So, next slide. So, if we look at, the overall benefits that we're expecting from this, of course, the operational benefits of, making sure that performance are there and performance is constant is certainly, the number one benefit. Now, in terms of the benefits for us, IT operation, okay, there are tactical benefits of, understanding better our infrastructure, understanding better how the application is deployed. There are strategic benefits. The understanding also of capacity planning, for example. What is the capacity that I have? Is it sufficient? Could it be expanded? What is the scalability of my application over time? Is it capable of, handling twice the end users, 3 times the end users that I have, etc., without breaking up? So lots of benefits from, implementing performance management and implementing end user performance. Next slide. So the management of service levels. You can, if you're using an active agent, if you're using a monitoring of end user experience, we can collect, a number of statistics, and we can adjust, the different scripts that we are using for these active agents to measure different things from different standpoints, different transactions, different applications. We can create statistical samples that are extremely important to prove to the business that the performances are good. Also to give us, the indications whether we have enough capacity, whether our application architecture and our infrastructure is correct for the type of workload and the type of end users that we have. We can, correlate these things with, in e-commerce, for example, with conversion rates. Okay, is there a relationship between, our capacity of, performing well and being available with our conversion rate in terms of sales? Can we expect by improving one to improve the other, etc.? So, there is also the capability to understand whether there's stability in our infrastructure by applying, statistical process control to the measurement that we've done. And we could use, services to benchmark whether our service provider is the best one, or whether, we are constantly providing the right level of performance wherever people are accessing our sites in the world. Next slide. So, as a conclusion, okay, I would say, and this is really something that you all know, that applications are increasingly composite and complex, of course. Okay, we have problems, if we look at the profiles of resources, and by this I mean CPU load, memory usage, IO frequency, blah, blah, blah. All these kind of measurements at the component level are not going to give us an appreciation of what's going on at the end user. So we need data at the transaction level. We need to be able to collect and capture availability and performance at the end user level. And it will correlate directly with the service performance, with the service architecture, with the detailed resources. If you have a good performance, you can look at what is effectively the CPU load, what is the memory usage at that level of performance, and understand better your capacity, your normal profile of the applications, etc. So a number of things that that are important. So with this, on the next slide, you've got my my email. You've got my the ability to reach me and discuss further these questions. I would like to thank you for listening and apologize for the little hiccups, technical hiccups at the beginning of this presentation, and hand it over to Gaurav. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, JP. I think that was very insightful, at least for me. I don't know about the users, but so for sure, I think first thanks to everyone, for being there in the call. I am Gaurav Jetli. I represent Kronos here. I'm the Director of Cloud Operations. And here, I'm here to talk about our issues, what we had initially in the past, and I kind of give you a little bit overview of Kronos, what we do, and when we say a cloud, what kind of products, what we measure. And I definitely will not go into the in-depth analysis of the APM performance and complex structure the way JP has, I think, elaborated. It was very insightful. But I would like to share with you, initially when we had challenges and how we started leveraging the management application manager product, and also in the situation where we were, where we are, and what we are going to do, and what changes has been performed when we started leveraging the product, and also kind of a future roadmap where we are expecting to go in terms of cloud-based monitoring solutions. So Arun, can you change the next slide? So just to give you kind of my overview, I think which Arun has already given, like I've been managing the cloud business from 17 years with different enterprise layer from Microsoft to France Telecom, and now with cloud. It's been 4 years been working with Kronos, managing the worldwide cloud operations where we have different cloud offerings, private cloud, hosted, SaaS. So and been predominantly working with Kronos there. So kind of give you an overview of Kronos, what we do. Kronos is it's a purely a product-based workforce management solution-based organization where we are we are majorly into workforce management solutions, labor analytics, HR and payroll hirings. Typically like a product-based organization where we offer our on-premise business base, and also we have a cloud offerings. There are kind of 30 million users and all enterprise layer customers, probably, which I will share with you in the next slide, who uses Kronos. And almost global customers. We provide global operations, global support, on-premise and cloud-based too. So with different various offerings. And cloud is predominantly is a kind of a focus from Kronos from 5 years, and we are very heavily investing in that. But it is also very important when we are in a cloud base, being a SaaS product or a product hosted solutions. It is important to know the real-time customer user and metrics. So I think with the next slides, I'll talk about our customer base, what we do, how our products offerings are, so that when we will talk about the integration of Manage Engine App Monitor, probably you can relate it to that. So like in Kronos, it's a kind of a 36-year-old organization, where we have a different product offerings, the way we started way back. And I think I was chatting with JP where he was saying that 20 years back he worked with Kronos, one of the customer for integration. So it's been grown phenomenally high, where we are, as you see, into devices of workforce management solution, from clocks to biometric solutions, and now going way ahead in terms of solutions. Next slide, please. So as a product portfolio, what you will see, we are into complete workforce management, where we have time attendance, forecasting, absence, activities, analytics, and payroll and hiring. All this what we provide. These are the three critical business issues what we focus on: labor costs, compliances, and workforce productivity. That's what predominantly what the product offering we as in Kronos we provide. Next slide, please. Typically what you see, the customers and where Kronos stand in terms of our competitors, in terms of where we are, where you can see kind of a Gartner surveys in terms of market reach. So and also being a global customer base, most of these are our customers also. Next slide. Thanks. So kind of a being a workforce management solution, where you will see our area of expertise in terms of retail, services, manufacturing, public sectors, healthcare, and you will see huge customer base, and predominantly on-premise customers and cloud-hosted customers, where we have a multi-tenant solution, single-tenant solution. So a huge customer base with enterprise layers of network, and in fact, on a joke, 90% of the Las Vegas Strip. So if you see kind of the way customer has been spread it out. So I'll move on to talk about the major part. And now, as I said, we have all these offerings. So you choose what you want. Either you want on-premise and Kronos Cloud. So I represent Kronos Cloud, but it is important to share what we do and what we host. And also, in the next slide, I'm going to talk about that how we have partnered with Manage Engine Application Manager, and what has changed, and what is kind of a roadmap we are looking for. And going in line with the JP assumption, where we in Kronos, typically, like when I work with my my group, what I say to them, there's basically 7 layers of monitoring what you need to offer. Where you have infrastructure, you have various facilities, network, various server components and application, and then firewalls and all component. But the most critical component, which we always miss, which is kind of a customers, where we don't even think about customer, that how customer feels. So the entire game, especially when you are a kind of a cloud or a hosted product, it all goes to how customer feels. What are the look and feel? What are the real-time user experience? So the game, it's a complete game changer. And so when you are on an on-premise base, you host a product and then you forgot about it. But when you are coming into a cloud base, it's a complete different environment. The game, if I was listening to JP, where the analysis of infrastructure availability and the analysis of an application availability and the analysis of environment availability, I think that's what we all kind of are looking upon. So having 5 nines in terms of infrastructure won't matter. What matters is that how the environment availability is. So the entire game changes to the application performance, where how customers are looking to the products what you have hosted, and especially when you have a single tenancy and multiple tenancy, the game is a little different. So next slide, please. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about, as in Kronos, a very simple slide. I don't have a typical data depicting to share with you. Initially, when we, past challenges has been, I would say, I think it's been 4 or 5 years. We are kind of using Manage Engine, where we have, enormous application support challenges in terms of logging, customization alerts. So what is leading to, we have product hosted, we have our infrastructure up and running, but the proactiveness, how a customer is looking at the environment, and when the issues are happening, how the application is performing. It's not kind of a typical application server alerts or kind of a database alert. Most of the organization, they have their own inbuilt and third-party tools are available where you can, kind of pick the alerts. But how the user metrics, when the users are coming to your application, which is hosted, and trying to access the application, trying to see that, okay, I'm at particular module and I'm trying to access that, and that is causing a user transaction issues. So we were looking kind of a tool where who can catch those threads, catch the the application statistics, which can give us a proactive alerts and configuration and kind of a root cause analysis which we can predict. So when moving on, we started working with a Manage Engine application manager. We use a lot of product offering for Manage Engine, but these for application manager has been predominantly been used in all our cloud hosted environments. So just to give you a base, we have 1,200 customer instances of non-production and production Manage Engine, and it's been very heavily used. Where even in terms of logging, so I'll give you an example. If there's an application issue happening, we have even set up thresholds at the layer where we are even taking thread dumps. We are even kind of trying to capture different MBs which can be proactively configured for application managers, and we can cache the proactive alerts rather than being reactive and sitting, okay, the CPU got depleted and there's an issue, the customer died. So that layer of analysis and how we have integrated a Manage Engine product, the App Manager, back to our ITSM base where we can start the incident to problem to change analysis mode. Definitely future, as coming back to last slide of JP, where the analysis, the game is to link all the legacy and all new products into a real-time customer metrics where we can see a kind of a drill down approach where we know that this customer is having an issue from this user. You can further drill it down to see what happened, and also kind of configure your thresholds at that layer where you can pick the issues upfront rather than waiting for the customer to fall. So that level of benchmarking, that level of performance baselines, I think that's where we are working on in the next phase, and we are partnering up with application management team to see how we can link the code layer with our OEMs in our product offerings. Next slide, please. You can move to the next slide. So I think to a future goal model with application management, I think what we have done, kind of more than 11,000 customer base, different SaaS, single tenant, private cloud hosted environment. I think at this time, in a sum of all total, we are kind of looking on a cloud dashboard where we can have real-time metrics, the monitoring tools, their portals, and the capacity planning, which can be on a one view. So APM provides you the insight into the complete application environment availability, but also we have to link the entire base to our service management layer so that we can predict the behavior with a one glass pane window and see. So these are the critical part where we are working and what we have achieved by using the product. Definitely, it is not every enterprise product when they come with some little bit challenges also, and I think we've been working well with a group to see, and we can identify that because every product has different layers, legacy, code base, which sometimes become difficult to manage and monitor. So I think that's where we are kind of working on our future roadmap, analyzing the performance baselines, trying to see whether we can adjust. Each customer has a separate product portfolio and customer configurations. So this is kind of a model where we are looking for. And that's how we have leveraged the product. So in case you have any questions, why we choose that, what were our initial challenges, where we are, how much, where else we are trying to go. Other than the application part, we even use the product for our layer-based infrastructure monitoring too. So I'll be gracious to answer any questions you want. So So back to, I think, Arun.
Thanks, Gaurav. Yeah. Thanks, Gaurav, for the insightful presentation.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Gaurav, for the insightful presentation, and thanks, JP, too. Well, it was very useful listening to how Kronos implemented Managing Applications Manager and overcame their technical challenges as well as achieved their business goals. Just a quick word about Managing Applications Manager here. It is an APM solution from Manage Engine. It has support for different modules of APM such as end user experience monitoring, support for monitoring heterogeneous infrastructure including servers, app servers, databases, web server, etc., as well as virtualization and cloud monitoring support. It helps in performance troubleshooting and service level and helps to manage service level agreements. You can download a 30-day free trial of Applications Manager at www.manageengine.com/apm. I would definitely encourage you to check out the 30-day free trial of the software. So now I'll go ahead and jump into the questions, the Q&A session. We have a few questions here. The first question is to JP. How do you see the end user experience monitoring evolving?
That's a very good question. Definitely, if I look at the past 10, 15 years, this is an area that has changed considerably. I remember as an analyst that papers I wrote on end user experience monitoring 14 years ago when I was the only analyst in the community to really look into it and think that it was important. I think that what is key now is two things. First, the perception, the general perception that understanding end user experience monitoring is important. So in terms of the market, in terms of the public perception, things have considerably evolved. And in terms of products and in terms of what is available on the market, we've seen that this became very quickly an important part of application performance management, and it's now expanding to a number of different technologies. So, there are technologies like the one we described for active monitoring. There are what we call passive monitoring, which is, made of appliances that are measuring actually not the end user, but I would say the data center experience, because they don't go to the end user. There are technologies where you can now instrument web pages, where you can collect information on mobile devices and on other customer endpoints. So the technology evolves because the perception of the importance of end user experience has evolved. It's becoming a key element. There are in our at Forrester we have now a lot of analysts working on end user experience. I'm one little part because I'm looking at performance and application performance, but the world of customer experience has really exploded. So that's certainly going to continue with the different end user devices that we see appear on the market.
Thanks, JP. The next question is to Gaurav. So you explained about using of Manage Engine's Applications Manager product. So before implementing Applications Manager, which other monitoring solutions had you tried out, and why did you move on to Applications Manager?
Thanks, Arun. So I think it's a difficult question, but I'll try to answer. So initially, we were using multiple typical any organization which the way they use their in-house products, and we had a Microsoft MOM, and to be very fair, all the in-house product what we have is kind of a inbuilt engineering product which they provide based with with the product offerings. So there was not kind of any enterprise product which has been used overall with multiple product offering where you can see as a one glass pane. So we have, so if I will talk about a typical operations team scenario and operations center where people are looking at the alerts. So kind of 8 and 9 monitoring tools, monitoring different products and try to understand their scenario. Like one person even having multiple NOC monitors can't even, focus on managing the alerts and forget about the proactive approach, or it's not even being reactive. So initially when we started looking on different tools, we evaluated multiple tools at that time, and definitely the biggest factor what we were looking for, one tool which can have a lot of compatibilities for different products, web servers, application server, DBTs, and most important has a kind of integration abilities which can integrate with our product and provide us a one dashboard view which operations team can see, and can also provide a capacity planning approach in terms of reporting. So it's been 4.5 years we're using this product, and I would say the look and feel, the user interface, and most important, the reporting mechanism for the product is fantastic. So we are definitely looking on a next series of evaluation, where how we can create our own cloud dashboard which can link with the product, can be encapsulated, and we can fetch out the information the way we want. So I hope it answers your questions.
Yes, it definitely does. Thanks, Gaurav. Next question to JP.
Yes.
What should a potential buyer be looking for in an APM solution?
That's a very good question. And I think Gaurav gave some of the answers already. As I said at the beginning, it's application performance is more, I'd say, a state of mind than it is technology. It's really shifting from looking at the infrastructure itself and making sure that the infrastructure is working, to shifting to whether the end result, whether the quality of service is delivered to the end user. So it's kind of a build-up, and of course, end user experience is part of it, monitoring is part of it, and reporting is part of it. But more importantly, because most of the customers, most of the data centers out there have already implemented something. They may have a network management product, or they may have other product. The capacity to integrate and the capacity to take all this information and present it in a format that is proactive, that is representative of the end user experience is a key. That's really what is important. This ability to integrate. You can buy products from many companies that are monolithic in terms of architecture. That is, they need their own monitoring. There is of infrastructure, their own monitoring of applications, their own monitoring of end user experience, in order to be able to provide a result. The capacity of aggregating stuff from different solutions and bringing that into something that is representative of the performance of the transaction is really the key element. I think the picture that we see right now on the screen is exactly what customers should look at in terms of APM.
All right. Thanks, JP. Well, thank you for answering those questions, both of you, JP and Gaurav. I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the event, we will be sending out a follow-up email in the next few days, which will include the webinar playback slides and the presentation PDF. Thank you once again for joining us and have a nice day.